now associated with the strong winds and the large hail, and we'll keep a very, very close eye on what Chris called velocity, which is the turning in the atmosphere. If you can throw up the velocity right behind me also to keep an eye on if there's any changes to this storm cell. Again, that pink colored polygon over the Lake Erie Islands, including Put-in-Bay, that shows you the tornado warning that is in effect for about another 40 minutes. Lots of lightning and thunder. You will hear this storm moving on through. And even if you're not in that pink polygon, get indoors away from windows and seek shelter. We are seeing some strong turbulent winds. Those bright yellow colors show you where the winds are strong and howling, 60+ mile-per-hour winds, in addition to some possible turning in the atmosphere that goes from Put-in-Bay all the way down towards Catawba Island, keeping a very close eye on this radar-indicated tornado warning. Again, nothing's been reported or confirmed just yet. We're corresponding with the National Weather Service to make sure that it stays that way. But as of now, this is what we call a radar-indicated tornado warning, again, until 4:45. If you put up the details on radar just of where that warning is in effect for and how long it lasts, we can advise folks at home who may be under this tornado warning and also the surrounding severe thunderstorm warnings. Even if you find yourself in one of those yellow polygons, including Oak Harbor and Port Clinton, there are still some very powerful straight line wind gusts associated with that. We've gotten some reports of 60+ mile-per-hour winds. So there are going to be some turbulent winds. And of course, over the Lake Erie Islands in that pink polygon, that is where we are seeing the greatest tornado potential. I want to pan out the view a little bit. Those of you that are not under that tornado warning, what is the weather like where you're at and what can you expect as we draw the view on out here with our Doppler radar feature? You can see that the worst of the storms have now passed off to the east of I-75. We are still seeing some storm cells that are pushing into parts of Seneca County as well, southeast of the Toledo Metro. We have a number of ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings. And looking to the west of Toledo, there is still some remaining rainfall, but that might be it for round one of the storms. However, additional thunderstorms could develop west of Toledo later on this evening. Keeping a close eye on that National Weather Service chat as well. But again, this is an overview of the current warnings that we have in effect right now. Other than that one tornado warning over the Lake Erie Islands, those yellow polygons from Ottawa County down towards Seneca, that shows you strong, powerful straight line wind gusts that will be possible as well. I'm going to put up the velocity feature to show you the latest on the winds and if we are seeing any changes to the wind profiles of this system. Again, that bright yellow color, that shows you where some strong winds are possible right over the Lake Erie Islands, and we're also seeing those 60-mile-per-hour straight line wind gusts. But the main focal point is going to be over the islands with that pink polygon, including Put-in-Bay, that is under that tornado warning. And again, that goes until 4:45 p.m. We'll be on air until that threat has passed and until the storms have cleared on out. But I'm not seeing any new information other than the radar indication of that tornado warning. Sometimes no news is good news, but we are keeping a very close eye on the straight line wind potential as well as the hail potential as well.
Yeah, John, let's talk about that straight line wind potential, because there's different levels of severe magnitude when we're looking at severe thunderstorm warnings. And the storm, particularly in Ottawa County, that extends down into Sandusky and Seneca County, it's been tagged as considerable, which means it could be winds up to 70 miles per hour with that. So if we can get over here to Doppler radar, straight line wind damage, that's a significant concern. We saw these storms come through the Toledo Metro. They have reported wind damage. We've got about 14,000 customers just in the Toledo Metro without power due to some of that wind damage, getting reports of some tree and wind damage down toward Bowling Green. We get a little bit closer, though, into the action across parts of Ottawa County. There's where our active tornado warning is, and the heaviest of the rain now just coming into Put-in-Bay down toward Catawba Island. But here's an area of concern. Anywhere from Port Clinton back along Route 163, it is directly over the Ottawa County Fairgrounds. There's the Portage River. So this one is tracking due east at about 35 miles per hour. It is directly over Oak Harbor right now, and it is continuing to track east 35 miles per hour. It extends right down State Route 19. This is an area that last month got hit with severe storms. That extends all the way down State Route 19 and over toward parts of Sandusky County as well. We've got just really incredible, vivid lightning, torrential downpours, and this is an area that could be seeing winds in excess of 60 miles per hour. John, if you could go ahead and grab the screen here, why don't you put some times of arrival here? Let's take the leading edge of this complex of storms. Curious when this is going to be making its way into Port Clinton and where's next up, because we want to give that advanced warning not only of what's going on up there toward the Lake Erie Islands, but the potential of these 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. As this moves east at 35 miles per hour, really kind of an intense squall line from Port Clinton all the way down past Fremont, moving east at about 35 miles per hour. So we're looking at at Port Clinton, this is really just on top of you as it's going to begin to rain. The winds are picking up now in Port Clinton. If you're over toward Clyde, this is going to be a little bit closer to 420. So I'm giving you about a 10-minute heads up if you are in Clyde that the leading edge of these gusty winds are going to be headed right down Route 20. It is directly over Fremont. If we get a little bit closer now into Fremont, your window of warning to seek shelter has already arrived. You need to be in your safe place in Fremont due to the fact that we could be seeing winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour. And with how this one's shaping up, some wind damage from Port Clinton all the way down. Here's State Route 53 that extends right into the north end of Fremont, and Route 20 coming right in the west side of town. We see very heavy torrential rain and gusty winds that are occurring. Do we have any updated information, John, on the active tornado warning? If we head back up there, we could just highlight what we have with the active tornado warning. That is in effect for the Lake Erie Islands. It does appear, it looks like it clips northern Catawba Island. Any of the cameras we do have, now that we've got radar system, radar zoomed back in on this one. Any of our views, we've got our Jet Express cam that's out in this area that is going to be showing really torrential rain. So if we could put that Jet Express cam back up, we're going to show you what it's doing right now in the Put-in Bay area where we've got torrential rain that is happening. So here's a couple of the cameras we have from the Jet Express. Yeah, look at that torrential rain that is coming down. You know, if we had a circulation, if we had anything that was tornadic, you're not going to be visibly seeing much with how heavy that rain is, how high the winds are, and what is going on across the Lake Erie Islands.
So, Chris, some new information coming in from the National Weather Service. As of 4:12 p.m., they said that the tornado warning for Erie and Ottawa counties is canceled. We're keeping a close eye on potential reissuance of that. But of course, we talked a lot about the strong straight line winds, and we're getting some reports into the newsroom, Chris, of a lot of traffic cameras that are down, as well as like stoplights. So make sure that you treat those as four-way stops if there are some lights that are out. And of course, lots of power outages in the ballpark in magnitude of potentially tens of thousands. So we'll keep a close eye on if there is any reissuance. But as of 4:12, it does look like that tornado warning was canceled. We still do have a number of severe thunderstorm warnings, and there is the potential that some of those do have that considerable potential in the ballpark of 60 to even 70 mile per hour winds. And these storms have a history of doing some wind damage, some structural damage, as well as downed tree and power lines that have caused numerous power outages across the Toledo Metro and across much of Northwest Ohio as well. Keeping a close eye on the National Weather Service and seeing if there's any updated information on this one as well.
All right, John, before we, give people the kind of the all clear, because we're still concerned about the threat of higher end wind. That's great information that you passed along about the cancellation, but still actively monitoring any rotation up there toward the Lake Erie Islands. Going forward, John, what would you suspect the greatest risk is going to be? It's I-75 and east, specifically out here from the Lake Erie Islands down through Port Clinton through Fremont, of those high wind gusts. But there also is the risk of more storms that will be developing tonight that will have the potential of producing widespread wind damage. This may be just the first round of storms coming through. So I do want to monitor this storm for just a little bit longer. We're getting a brand new update here on this severe thunderstorm warning that is down there in Sandusky County. Likely they're just kind of trimming the western extent of it. So if you're west of Fremont, you're going to be in the clear. I'm going to give you the all clear now for Woodville and Gibsonburg, Bowling Green, where it appears we had some wind damage, perhaps to some trees and power lines that occurred as that storm went across Wood County. It was a severe warned storm at the time. All of Wood County and Lucas County, you were under a severe thunderstorm warning. That is now since expired. The only active alerts that we have right now do extend as far south as Tiffin down here. So we're down here in Seneca County from Tiffin right up toward Fremont, and then from Fremont to Port Clinton. This is the area that is going to carry the greatest risk of wind damage, perhaps 60 to 70 miles per hour. That active tornado warning, it was issued just before 4 p.m. It lasted for about 15 minutes out there for the Lake Erie Islands. Brief little spin in the circulation that we noted on radar. Outside of that, though, we're just getting some very gusty winds. Would not be surprised if we have power outages that extend from the Lake Erie Islands headed through Catawba Island, because this is directly now over Port Clinton. This is going to be working up toward Catawba Island and eventually over toward the Sandusky Bay and eventually Sandusky. If you know somebody out there towards Cedar Point, go ahead and give them a heads up. How about some power outages that we have active? We have about 12,000 customers in the area that are now actively without power. Some of the strong storms that came through the Toledo metro, getting a few scattered reports down into southwest Lucas County, and now some reports beginning to come in eastern Lucas County of power outages as well, as these winds did come through in excess of 50 to 60 miles per hour. And now that they are over parts of Sandusky, Seneca, and Ottawa County, the potential is over 60 miles per hour for those high wind gusts, John.
Yeah, keeping a close eye on those power outages as well. With the strong straight line winds being the biggest impact, we do have quite a few power outages. Some counties reporting close to 10% of folks who live in that county are without power. Thanks for this latest graphic map. Looking at Lucas County, nearly 15,000 who are without power at the moment. And I've been looking at the estimated restoration times. Some of those going to be not until 6:30 p.m. Possibly later for some areas. So we're keeping a close eye on those severe thunderstorm warnings. Again, 60 to even up to 70 miles an hour if we can get one last look at Doppler radar. But very good information on the power outages. This is just after 4:15 p.m. Lots of lightning and thunder being reported as well. In fact, some of those storm cells have packed over 300 lightning strikes. And now these are all moving off to the east of the Toledo metro. And if you live in Erie and Huron County, yours is going to be in the line of fire with this storm cell as it heads towards Sandusky and eventually Norwalk. Latest track on that still is moving at around 40 miles per hour. So it'll arrive in Erie and Huron counties between about 4:30 to 5 p.m. as it moves from due west to east. But right now, the storm directly overhead Fremont, also central Seneca County, still seeing the potential for 60-mile-an-hour winds. And it does look like the strongest wind threat that is going to be on the northern flank of this one near Ottawa County. That is where we're seeing the greatest wind potential, and that's moving towards Port Clinton and eventually Sandusky by about 4:30 p.m. That is where we could see a few of those wind gusts even get close to 70 miles an hour. On the southern extent of that line, including Tiffin and Seneca County, the winds will be closer to 60 miles an hour. But either way, no matter how you look at it, those are some vicious winds that could cause structural damage, tree damage, and possibly even more power outages. The good news, though, this first round is probably going to be out by about 5:30 p.m. as it moves off into eastern Ohio. And then behind that, could get a couple hours of a break before that additional round moves on through later on in the evening, and that could bring additional strong storms. We'll keep a close eye on how radar looks on the back edge of that. I do want to give you the bigger picture look, though, to see if there is any development, because we are keeping a close eye on what you're seeing up near Kalamazoo and over Lake Michigan as well as a cold front moves through, and that could potentially provide a little reinvigoration in the atmosphere. Again, round one is now to the southeast of I-75, and some more thunderstorms on the back edge of that are possible for the later on hours this evening after dinner time, keeping a close eye on those severe thunderstorms that remain in effect, with the biggest impact being those strong, powerful, straight line gusty winds that could even be 60 to 70 miles an hour. These storms have a history of doing quite a bit of wind damage, and we're going to look for the local storm reports to show you some of those downed trees and power lines across the Toledo metro, across Wood counties, Fulton County, even back towards the Indiana-Ohio state line. We saw quite a few storm reports as a result of these systems. So one of those reports comes in from Pemberville, where numerous trees were downed. Thanks for that information, Matt. We saw numerous reports of trees, and we've even seen some reports of healthy trees that are down as a result of these storm cells. Also near Toledo, we got downed power lines and poles that were near downtown Toledo. That's where that report was. I was also looking at some reports near Metamora to the west of Toledo, where we saw even some downed power lines on roadways as a result of these storms.
And John, with that very fluid situation, we've just got brand new numbers in now, up to 30,000 customers here in Lucas County without power, and that number really literally continues to grow by the moment. So my assessment, John, of this is that we're just going to continue to get more and more information as this will be a fluid situation. Want to break down two things, and John, you had some great points there, because we may not be done with this round altogether. There could be another round later today. Let's highlight, John, this in two parts. I want you to do the immediate threat for me here in Ottawa County. Let's go ahead and let's take the lightning off of this map, because we've got an incredible amount of lightning. We get that, right? It's going to be very dangerous to be outdoors. This gives us a little bit more of a vivid picture of the radar. From Port Clinton back to Oak Harbor is where the threat is. In fact, the leading edge of that likely now just east of Port Clinton, where that high wind gust is going to be right up the Lake Erie shoreline from Port Clinton to Catawba Island. If you've been there, it's a beautiful drive that takes you all the way to the tip of Catawba Island. Really torrential rain that is occurring right now along the Lake Erie shore. High wind gusts headed through Catawba Island. That does extend down toward Danbury Woodbury and Port Clinton really getting hit with some of the heaviest rain right now, and it would extend right across the Sandusky Bay. There's a brand new radar scan showing right at the Bay Bridge headed over towards Cedar Point where we've got the high winds that are going to be very likely. So let's move this a little bit more to the east. And John, why don't you go ahead and give me some times of arrival as well. I'm still estimating, we double check on this, and meteorologist Matt Willoughby back here behind the scenes. Matt, 35 miles per hour is the forward motion on this storm. So they were moving a little quicker earlier in the afternoon, but these continue to move to the east about 35 miles per hour. So let's take the leading edge of this system here and let's take it across and into Erie County. We haven't seen a severe thunderstorm warning that's been extended into Erie County. I would fully suspect that Erie and Huron County, you are going to be next. So I want you to go ahead and get prepared at this point because you're likely to be next. If you are in Clyde, we gave you that heads up. It is arriving within seconds. So Clyde right down there on Route 20. The heaviest of that storm is just west of Clyde, and within the next 1 to 2 minutes, if the winds aren't already gusting, it is moving into Clyde. So I want you to seek shelter. Winds could be in excess of 60 miles per hour. This is going to continue to move east. I'll give you the heads up. Sandusky, 437. If you got maybe the kids out or family or friends or loved ones out towards Cedar Point, that is going to be rolling through Cedar Point, which is right there at the end of my finger. I would imagine that they're in their storm mode and safety mode at this point, advising everybody to seek shelter, but it's worth a phone call at this point. Or maybe to check in on the kids or family or loved ones that are out at Cedar Point. It is a certainty that this storm is headed into Cedar Point, and it will be arriving right around 4:37, and then eventually through Huron right around 4:51. So active situation right now. We are still expecting the potential of winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour that will be possible with this particular storm extending from Catawba Island now down through the Sandusky Bay. It is in Fremont, now headed to the east side of Fremont. Route 20 between Clyde and Fremont is where you're just getting torrential driving rain and very gusty winds that are expected to continue. John, any other threats that you're monitoring right now? Again, we're happy we don't have any active tornado warnings. That has been allowed to expire, but this has our concern with the severe thunderstorm warning. Any new information on that as this storm races across the eastern part of our viewing area?
So, Chris, right now it looks like those strong straight line winds you pointed out, those are the biggest threats. A little update to the storm trajectory. They've picked up a little bit, moving at about 40 miles per hour, so still set to track towards Erie and Huron counties. Now, what if you live to the west, let's say the west of these storms? The worst of the threat, at least for the time being from this first round, has now passed out of the Toledo metro. However, there are still tens of thousands of folks without power. Again, once you get through that leading edge, the weather is going to briefly turn a little bit quieter with just some lingering rain on the backside of that. And that leading edge is stretched from Ottawa County down towards Seneca County, where you see those yellow shaded boxes. Those are the active severe thunderstorm warnings. And then west of that, a little bit of a break from the storms before that second potential round arrives later on. And these are racing again, now moving at about 40 miles per hour due west to east, and we still do have some severe thunderstorm warnings. Those are going to be in effect for over an hour more for portions of Erie, Huron, Ottawa, and Sandusky. And as Chris pointed out, it was inevitable that those new warnings would come in for Erie and Huron counties. And here's the latest information right up there on your screen. This is a new severe thunderstorm warning. Again, 60 mile per hour wind gusts will impact areas like Norwalk and New London until 5:30 p.m. So even though the storms have picked up steam a little bit, there's going to be another hour or so of threat with this line of storms that is now moving towards Erie and Huron counties. 137,000 folks in those yellow polygons under the line of fire of these severe thunderstorms. And because they have such a history of doing wind damage, causing even some minor structural and tree damage, and unfortunately tens of thousands of power outages, there is reason to believe that that could be the same impact as they move off to the east of Toledo for folks in Erie and Huron counties. Of course, we pointed out lots of lightning and thunder, heavy rain, and even some moderate-sized hail associated with this. But the biggest threat that we are seeing right now continues to be those strong straight-line winds, as the latest information shows us these new warnings, those yellow polygons for Erie and Huron counties, and that's going to go until 5:30, so a little over an hour until these storms fully clear off into eastern Ohio. And we'll keep a very close eye on the back edge of that system if there is a second additional round that is to develop later on this evening, say after dinner time. But of course, course, we're looking at the latest information, and we are still seeing additional strong wind reports, including some in Lucas County. And as we pointed out, the strong wind potential, the biggest threat of these storms. We just got a new report of a 57-mile-per-hour wind gust, and that one was in Harborview, Lucas County, Ohio. Also, some other 58-mile-per-hour wind gusts possible. So again, 50 to 60-mile-an-hour winds going to be possible as these race towards Erie and Huron counties, and the threat not totally done for parts of Ottawa County, even though it is now to the parts of eastern Ottawa County, where we are seeing the worst of that storm now push off towards the lakeshore and towards Erie and Huron counties, well to the southeast of I-75.
John, you mentioned this, and I'll have the ability to actually show this too. We can kind of do this on the fly. In a moment, our directors could take Max 3. We've got a camera out in that viewing area, So Max 3, we're going to be able to show what it looks like right now toward Lakeside. And that's an area that has some of the heaviest rain approaching. Perhaps we're going to see some small hail come from this. This is the Lakeside dock cam, where a really strong storm is working through. You can see the winds are picking up. Some fairly torrential rain that's going to be possible, and winds 50, 60, even in some instances, could be up to 70 miles per hour with this particular storm. John, you also mentioned moments ago we had some additional damage reports that came in, had reports of tree damage right around Alexis and Jackman. That storm came through. This was a little bit closer to about 3:30, 4 o'clock when these storms were really rolling through the Toledo metro. They packed some gusty winds, and the latest report had about 30,000 people without power with a tree down near Jackman and Alexis. And of course, folks will be cleaning up from some of the tree damage. I did get a few reports as well in and around Point Place, which of course got hit very hard last month, of some tree damage and some power outages in and around Point Place. So this is going to be something, unfortunately, I think we're going to deal with tonight. And there's the cluster of reports that continue to come in. And the latest report up to about 30,000 customers in the Toledo metro without power. All the active weather, the active situation is now east. And as we mentioned and fully expected, we get an extension to the severe thunderstorm warnings that are now in effect for Erie and Huron County, those until 5:30. The line of storms, I just want you to have that early heads up. It's racing to the east about 35 to 40 miles per hour. Leading edge of it, really it extends from Tiffin all the way up into Ottawa and through Sandusky County. That is until 5:30. We've got Erie, Huron, Ottawa, and Sandusky. They've just gone ahead and blanketed this severe thunderstorm warning until 5:30 p.m. Are we still looking at, do we have an update, John or Matt, on the max winds that we're estimating with this? It appears on Doppler radar they may be in excess of 60 miles per hour. John, are you seeing anything different as far as the max winds?
So based on the latest warning from the National Weather Service, Chris, 60 miles an hour is still the ballpark of winds that we're looking at. And that falls fairly closely in line with some of the reports that we've gotten with those buoys in eastern Lucas County reporting 57, 58 miles an hour, and also all that tree damage. Generally, 60 miles an hour is what it takes to cause this widespread of a damaged swath. So I would say as you head towards Erie and Huron County, we're going to continue to see 55 to even 60 mile per hour winds with this system, in addition to all the heavy rain, the lightning and thunder, and of course some small hail possible. We're just looking at that lakeside camera, and boy, you could really see the trees whipping around on that camera. That looked to be some strong winds on the leading edge of that storm that is now well to the southeast of Toledo. And there is still going to be about another 1 full hour on this storm threat for our far easternmost counties, including Erie and Huron. And we've got some of that tree damage reports there that you can see from our viewers. Of course, we advise you only send that after the storm has passed. We want you to seek shelter, get indoors away from windows. Even just a severe thunderstorm warning, that is enough to get indoors away from the storm and seek shelter and safety. Our Port Clinton camera keeping a close eye. We've got to look out towards the Marblehead Lighthouse, and you can see the water's quite choppy as a result of this storm cell that is also over the lake waters in addition to over land, as we look at that line of storms that is moving well to the east of Toledo. And we are looking for additional reports, but so far that magnitude of 55 to 60 mile an hour winds, that is in line with what we're seeing from the National Weather Service and also from some of the damage reports and photos that we have received so far. Again, those yellow polygons to the east of Toledo, those are our active severe thunderstorm warnings. And the newest data showing that warning for Erie and Huron counties, that one goes until 5:30, but not totally in the clear in Port Clinton just yet. In fact, the center of that storm cell right over Port Clinton, moving towards Sandusky, and Sandusky is going to get the worst of the storm, as Chris pointed out earlier, at about 4:37 p.m. So in just a matter of minutes, minutes. Sandusky is going to get under the heaviest storm with those strong winds also racing off towards Fremont. It looks like the worst of the storm is now past you off to the east, and the same goes for Tiffin. Even though the southern extent of this isn't quite as powerful, I would say that Seneca County likely to see winds that are a little bit lesser than the rest of this storm cell. The strongest winds are going to be up to the north of that in Sandusky and Ottawa counties, pushing towards Erie and Huron. But again, Seneca County winds not quite as ferocious as those winds that are heading towards Erie and Huron counties. Latest storm track still showing a movement at around 40 miles an hour with some of those embedded wind gusts 60 miles an hour or a little stronger. And so far the reports have corroborated the damage that we've seen. Lots of wind gusts in the ballpark of 55 to 60 miles an hour. And we still have about another hour left on that. Look at all of those storm reports. Some downed trees. We got a latest report there at the Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, a 51 mile per hour wind gust, and a lot of reports coming in out of portions of eastern Lucas and western Ottawa counties out towards the lake and bay. That seems to be an epicenter of some of the strongest winds that we saw, but also looking to the south of the river in Wood County, there were also some storm reports there. And of course, the brunt of this storm system is now to the southeast of I-75 and southeast of Toledo. So the Toledo Metro, Lucas and Wood counties, at least for the time being, you are in the clear from these storms. However, we are keeping a close eye. If the atmosphere can rebound, we could get a bit of a second wind with an additional round of thunderstorms. And we're always keeping a close eye onto the northwest of Toledo. If you look up towards Kalamazoo and Fort Wayne, there are some additional thunderstorms bubbling up. Those ones are not severe just yet, but we'll take it one step at a time and see if those second round of storms do become strong to severe. But right now, our focal point is to the southeast of Toledo, with these storms heading towards Erie and Huron counties. Looks like the worst of the storms have now passed to the east of Fremont, but Port Clinton and Sandusky, boy, still getting inundated with rainfall out towards the Lake Erie Islands, still seeing some very powerful winds with that. And we've gotten several reports now of 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. The latest report that I'm seeing comes from Oregon, a 51 mile per hour wind gust, which is very much in line with what the National Weather Service warned us about and what we warned you about here on air with those severe thunderstorm warnings.
All right, John, at this point, we've got a few severe thunderstorm warnings still to get through. We're going to give you a rundown of this one more time, and then we're going to get prepared for WTOL 11 news at 5 p.m. Of course, we'll have continued updates, though, on WTOL.com and on the WTOL 11 weather app. But the active situation is right now from about Fremont to Tiffin, really east. It's going to be approaching Route 4 into Erie and Huron counties where we've got active weather warnings. It does include several counties at this point, parts of 5 counties under severe thunderstorm warnings. The vivid lightning that's going to be very frequent with this, and the heaviest of the storm right now extends from about Clyde and Green Springs up through Port Clinton, now headed towards Sandusky, and I do expect this is going to continue to roll into parts of Erie and Huron County. Latest report had about 30,000 customers here in the Toledo Metro without power. We're going to continue to monitor that as we don't have a severe weather risk over the next couple of hours here in the Toledo Metro, so it'll give us an opportunity to assess that. But as John mentioned, still some strong to severe storms that will be possible with round number 2 as we get into the evening. So again, a recap of what we have active right now. We've got about 5 counties under a severe thunderstorm warning. We aren't seeing any rotation with these particular storms, so the risk of a tornado seems to be low at this point, but wind damage and high winds in excess of 60 miles per hour, and some initial thoughts on some of those storms. They could have been producing winds up to 70 miles per hour. Seems to be back closer to about that 55 to 60 mile per hour range. So we will have the latest continuing on WTOL.com, updates on the WTOL 11 weather app, and in less than 30 minutes, we're going to come back with our WTOL 11 news at 5 p.m. with all the latest on the continued storm threats. Download that free WTOL 11 weather app. Will keep you ahead of any of the storm activity that continues to impact our area, both currently now and again this evening tonight. Stay safe.